But you should always check your spam filter. Check your spam filter because over the summer, about 4 years ago, I thought I was sitting one weekend and thought, I'm not getting that many emails. So I checked my spam filter, which had been really aggressive. And the first note in there was an email with all caps that said, AMA CEO, call now.
Oh,
Hey, Chris.
hey Chris, how are you?
Good. How was your Memorial Day weekend?
It was really nice. Three birthday parties. First
Oh,
one, remember strategist Simon? That
yes.
we had a birthday party for him that ended at a Weezer cover band over at Fitzgerald. It was a blast, absolute blast. How about you? What'd you do?
I feel like I really kind of dug into summer. I played golf on Friday. I played tennis on Saturday and Sunday and Monday. And then we planted flowers, we grilled,
Yeah.
we went on a boat ride and we did all the summer things.
So we've got Benny Johnson that we're talking to today.
Yeah. Have you ever met him?
I don't think I have. Or maybe at one event, but I think he
Yeah.
spoke. I didn't really get a chance to chat with him.
Yeah. I've had the pleasure of talking with him many times. We've
Is
become
he
good friends over the years. He's a good guy.
So is he like your volunteer boss? Is that like the way this works?
Um, Not really. I think, I feel like there's always a healthy tension between the, the main organization or the national versus the chapter. But Benny and I have always gotten along. And he started right when I became, like right around when I was president-elect for the first time. So it was like my first round of being president. And he was trying to get onboarded. It's interesting. AMA is headquartered in Chicago, but he lives in DC.
He's in DC. Why did I think it was New York? Because
Nope, it's here,
it's here, is headquartered.
like in the Prudential building.
Okay.
And so he was trying to just kind of get a feel for some of the chapters. And so a bunch of us from the chapter met him and his team for dinner one night. And then we just got along really well.
Well, Chicago's the oldest AMA chapter, right?
Oldest and largest, because we like to flex. So I've known Benny for a while. What are some of the things you're interested in hearing about from Benny
Well,
today?
well, he was a middle school entrepreneur. I want to hear that story. Not
Okay.
sure what that means, if that means mowing lawns. Uh, he went to Yale, which is super impressive. He was CEO of AIGA, which is design organization, and I was a huge fan, student member. I want to hear what he did there and how he changed that organization. And lastly, I want to hear about his current AMA, what he was brought in to do. It's
Yeah.
usually that was a list of four. What about you?
I want to dig into that AMA thing too and just really get an idea of how do you balance national initiatives with chapter needs and
Right.
see kind of what his take is on that. I also want to get an idea of what his future vision for the organization is, and not just for AMA, but in the marketing world, like AI, and there's so many things changing. And kind of what pulse is he reading on the industry?
Yeah.
Welcome to our first episode of Marketing Outtakes, where we talk about the behind the scenes stories of marketing campaigns and careers. These are the moments when inspiration struck, when you made that last minute decision or you took the hard left turn and that never made it to the highlight reel.
And we're your hosts. I'm Chris Scullis.
And I'm Chris McGuire.
Today we have Bennie F. Johnson on the show. We're talking about his career, starting as a middle school entrepreneur, all the way to his current role as CEO of the American Marketing Association. Welcome, Benny.
Yeah, welcome
Thank,
back.
thank you. The double Chris's. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me here.
Chris
And you can,
squared. That's how we roll.
Yes,
you can just
yes,
ask a question to Chris, and
I see.
one of us will answer. It'll be fine.
You know, that's how we'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to have you here, and we're going to start by pulling back the curtain a little bit. And
Okay.
I want you to bring us back to little Benny when you were in
Yes.
junior high, I believe, growing up in New York City. and kind of what started this entrepreneurial spirit in your world?
That's kind of fun. So I will, uh, in full disclosure, grew up in D.C., but
Okay.
spent times dreaming of New York. But
Oh,
grew
I
up in
thought you were up in
D.C.
New York.
No, I'm a DC guy all the way. I
Okay.
used to work in New York, which we'll talk about a bit for. But yeah, between New York, Chicago, and DC, a ton of my professional life is really anchored in those three cities. So
Okay.
I get the privilege in my role now to spend time in all three.
That's
But
cool.
Okay.
but you want to know where it started. So
Yeah.
yes, that was the plan. Middle school Benny, loved marketing, and I knew years later I'd be CEO of the American Marketing Association. Exactly not how that went down, you know.
So you're the
But
one.
you know, so what was happening was I just had this natural affinity towards things that we would call marketing now. As a kid, I didn't necessarily know the four P's. I hadn't studied Phil Kotler. I didn't understand what marketing strategy meant and the spaces in there. But there was this connection that I had with the idea of growing business and communicating. And I was doing all these things without the formal training that we all look to now and
Sure.
saying, what does this look like? And for me, it was really starting in your own backyard, in your own world. That's really where great business and innovation starts. I see an opportunity. I can do something better, faster, stronger, different, and I'm going to try. The beauty of it is when you're a kid, you don't know what you shouldn't do.
Right.
You
Hmm.
don't know what you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and you're absolutely fearless,
Right.
which I
You
think,
think you know everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
really a recipe to be a dynamic marketer, if not a successful one. You'll definitely be fun. But I think that those are the types of things for me that made a lot of sense. So while other kids were doing stuff like playing sports and everything, I did. Wasn't as exciting for me as the idea of could I run my own business? Could I turn this into something? Those are the things that kept drawing me back in.
So, did you start any businesses in
yeah.
your early years?
Yes, I started some. Famously, my first entrepreneurial venture was selling candy on a school trip when I was
Ooh.
in the fourth grade, right? I had the idea, I knew we were going on a trip, and using that great fourth grade math, I realized that I could go out and buy candy at bulk at the what would have been Sam's Club or Costco of that day, right?
Sure.
I could go out and buy it in bulk and then sell it on the bus. So I went to my teacher at the time and asked for permission. She, I think, was tickled that who would ever think of this and didn't think anything through. It's like, yeah, you go ahead and do it. But had no idea that I was going to put together this venture where I knew I had at least 45 classmates locked into attention on this trip that I could sell them. And I could charge more than what you charged at the local convenience store because they couldn't go anywhere. And
Right.
this is the only place.
Captive
So I
audience.
knew I
Of
knew all
course.
these things, right? But the fun part of this story is as we get closer to the trip, I find out that it's not going to be one bus, but two. So then I
Oh,
reach out and
you got your
find
first employee. So your
well,
first employee.
I had a franchise. I found two other, trustworthy or so fourth graders to have them sell as well. So that became kind of this conversation. But all of those things, I tell the story in jest with all of these marketing principles tied in of distribution, of supply chain, of cost, promotion.
Right.
I didn't know any of those things, but it all made sense.
It all. Yeah.
Right.
And,
Sure.
and so that was kind of the first entrepreneurial foray. That turned into, by the time I was in high school, I was running my own trips and events to the local amusement parks in the area and renting 2 to 3 buses at times, and realizing that I could,
What?
yeah, I was going in and we can look back over it now. I was signing contracts and I wasn't 18. I think I did my last
Mm.
trip before I went to college and I was still 17. So the whole time was probably not legal. Once again, you're a kid, so you don't know
Yeah.
any better. And I had money, and so the bus company was like, "Hey, he's coming together more composed and with a solid plan than the adults that come in here."
So we got you in middle school. You're running a
Yeah,
bus
that,
company.
that doing
Then
doing that,
then you
signing
wind up at
contracts.
Yale. You wind up at Yale and then Procter and Gamble. So
Yeah.
take us through how that happened.
Once again, perfectly planned.
Of
No,
course. Of course.
we talk about this when you think about schools and impacts and space in there. I will tell you that I ended up at Yale partially because as a high school student, I knew I wanted to be a place that challenged me. And at the time, I paused and said, where did the President of the United States go to school? That was actually a proxy. You know, for a 16-year-old thinking about space in there, that became the proxy. So if that's the place that produces a president, those are the spaces. And that started that prep. I applied to other schools, and Chris and I are nodding because we have
Yeah.
students now who are high school seniors. So we're reliving that
Hmm.
experience or trauma, depending on how you think about it, right? But, it was, for me, it was an interesting moment because I came from a public school in DC, and I was the first student in about 30 years, we found out, to get accepted to an Ivy League school.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, I got accepted into several. And it was surreal in that moment, being a young man in that space and time. But it also, when you step back and thought about that history in space, it was incredible. But what I had a chance to experience was the collision of these worlds that I was a part of.
Yeah.
I was simultaneously a kid from public school during that era in DC and a student at Yale, right? And
Right.
how does it think about it? But it played very much into who I had become as a leader and as an entrepreneur in space, and being able to communicate and work through lots of different communities. But yeah, so the choice of, once I got the letter from Yale, the choice of going was simple, right? I'd already, talked to trash that I wanted to go to school that the president went
Yeah.
to. So I hopped on the train and ended up in New Haven. And while there, I got a chance to study with professors and classes and spaces that just kind of blew my mind into space,
Yeah.
and create a dear group of friends and colleagues. But I still was an entrepreneur. I was still thinking about running businesses in space, and got a chance to apply for the storied P&G brand management internship program. And I got it as a teenager and had a chance to work on Noxzema, doing teen marketing as a teenager,
Oh,
kind of
so
very
good.
meta in that
Space.
moment. Yeah, and learned so much about this world of marketing and brand that had been a part of my existence, but I didn't have the examples or the experience in the space. I got a chance to spend time in Chicago and meet creative leads at Leo Burnett, who was our agency of record at the time. I got a chance to work on new product launches. And that really cemented for me that, you know, business, entrepreneurship, and marketing in the brand lane was where I wanted to be. And this is what got me excited about the future.
Do you
So,
remember? Because I don't remember much of my essay that I wrote for college applications, but do you think you talked about your businesses that you had started and kind of that you
I,
want to kind of formalize that, or was it more?
I think I did. I think I talked about this is something I had done. I didn't necessarily say this is what I wanted to do in the future, right? But I'm pretty certain I was in there. That's so funny. That's been a topic I don't remember.
Yeah, right.
I
Well, I think
don't.
we hand
I,
wrote those essays back in the day. It
yeah,
wasn't like,
yeah, yeah. We're just all dating ourselves. Yes, we chiseled these out on the slab to, to figure it out. But no, I know that was a part of what I felt in the moment made me unique and was a different space. I wasn't surrounded by other kids who wanted to do these types of things, to explore this space and to think about it. Even at Yale, there wasn't an undergraduate business major,
yeah,
right?
oh,
Which actually was great because it influenced you to study everything.
yeah. So it was
And
more of a liberal arts education.
was liberal arts education, but my interest was business, but it was this nexus of uh, community, urban planning, development, strategy. It was that space in there. So I actually started off as an architecture major because it combined all of those spaces in there. And the course offering allowed me to take classes that were business and strategy, but tied into. And I still, to this day, tell people all the time that the architecture training was perfect training to be a business leader.
cool. So your internship at P&G, I mean, everyone has interns doing different things. Like sometimes they're
Right.
just stapling, and other times you get a really great intern that you're like, oh, you're presenting, you're doing all of it. Where were you? What were you doing?
Oh, well, the P&G internship program is storied in that it's real work all the time. You're
Good.
dropped in. The thing that made it quite dynamic for me in the moment is I was younger than everyone else.
Yeah.
I'd applied for the program, and I don't think anybody checked my age when I applied. So I famously got a phone call that I got the internship. That was the good news. The bad news was I was too young to do it.
Oh,
So I ended up with this space where it's like, you've got the internship, you won, but we can't have you come in because you're too young. And so that was a Friday. I had to tell my dad, like, I have a job, but I don't,
yeah.
right? So you're
Right.
trying to explain that. Um, and then by that Monday, I got a phone call back and said, we're about training and building the next level of leaders. And you beat everyone. You took the test, you took the interviews, you did everything else, you performed in there. So we're going to offer you the internship. So I went from yes and no to we're going to change and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Wow.
And it was, so I came in with that where I had nothing to lose and everything to gain because in my mind, I was too young. It wasn't supposed to be there anyway.
Right.
So I came in as a sponge to kind of take in everything I could. It was challenging at times because I was completely younger than everybody else and everything else. So,
Yeah.
you'd invited to things and I'm not 21,
Right.
right? I have to travel and I can't rent a car, right?
Right. That's
You know,
true.
these are all things that you have to then be creative about. But what it did allow me to do was work with creative leads at Leo Burnett and work on teen marketing campaigns and work on some cutting edge media at the time to build brand awareness and to get a chance to learn with some of the best and brightest in this storied space.
What I love about your story so far is that you kind of you never went in through the front door. You always found some way to get in there, but it wasn't by accident. It was just you kind of
Yeah,
creating your own opportunities. And so it's interesting. Your career kind of moved into this world of associations where you've
right,
led marketing and strategy. You now the CEO of the
right.
AMA and across almost every industry: technology, education, self-regulation at the BBB, design, and now marketing. Like
Yeah,
how did you go from I want to build my own business, I want
right.
to make money, I want to be this entrepreneur, I want to learn from P&G, to going this association route where you're still in that mix, but in a very different way.
A very different way. Like said, because all of our plans make sense, right? No, because this wasn't planning. This was about building to opportunity and space and growing to the next, right? And so I left, graduated from college. I did not want to go back to Cincinnati. I'd been young stationed there. So I looked for jobs in marketing in my native DC community and space and had opportunity to work at some really interesting companies that were either startups or brand restarts and spent the time growing and creating new opportunities and new product lines. And in the midst of that, I had the opportunity. I kept moving further and further out with the technology corridor here and wanted to be closer to home in DC
Hmm.
proper. And I had an opportunity, a person that became a mentor of mine hired me to work in an association and build out a global strategic marketing group from scratch.
Whoa.
So this spoke to kind of the entrepreneurial space. I had
Yeah.
had experience in technology marketing, education, consumer packaged goods and products. But how could you pull all that together and then create a team that was tasked with growing a credential globally? So I love the fact that there was a passion for a big idea and it was a space in which, my mentor at the time, the CEO, was like, I want you to come in and you can build it. And so we set about doing that, and we got a chance to launch one of the first and largest global credentials. And this was for the HR profession. And we did it across 75 countries, all simultaneously, moving from practice to profession and building a team that included all the areas that we talk about: insights and research, strategy, design, marketing and branding, because that's the way I approach marketing. It wasn't a limited space of just an ad. It wasn't marketing just as copy. I had been this inclusive part of what you learn at P&G, this inclusive notion of the brand as a business, as a P&L, as a strategic driver. And so bringing that together, I was able to pull those component parts. So that design was connected to insights, was connected to performance, was connected to offering at hand. And so that's kind of how I've always looked at the world. And this gave me a space without any of the, because I was building it from scratch, you didn't have to negotiate with, well, research is in this department now, and you want to talk about branding, but we're doing that in this department, and PR has this. I was building it all together in a way that made sense for where we were.
Interesting.
Very cool. Now, it seems that the places you've been marketing has a seat at the table, which, not every organization is built that way.
Well, I would say not always, right?
Okay.
And sometimes you have a seat at a table as really good spectator, right?
You sit over there. You're at
Yeah,
the table,
you're
but you're at the kids' table.
quiet observer, right?
Yeah.
And so it is building to it and reinforcing what we say is it's not just being in the room, it's also being a part of the conversation. More strategically, it's listening to, observing, and internalizing the conversation so that you can add value and drive strength. These are all the things that happen once you get in the door
Right.
Yeah.
and you sit at the table, which sometimes to your point, sometimes we can simplify it and just like, oh, we're at the table, we have arrived.
Yeah.
No,
No,
in this season
not
of
yet.
sports spaces in there, just making it to the playoffs doesn't make you a champion.
No.
Just winning
Right.
a few games, you don't win until you've actually won. And I think from a marketing perspective, it's an ongoing dynamic space at the table. I think it's interesting for many marketing leaders today that we're in the room listening to all of our other counterparts use marketing language. And yet we are straight. So our language has made it to the strategy.
Yes.
Our concepts have made it to the strategy, but marketing leaders are often still elbowing out for space.
Yeah.
I've recently heard that when marketers are at the table, like we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot by using our marketing language
Yes.
instead of talking about the business and the business goals and where we're supposed to be. And we have a tendency to just use our own internal language, and
Yes.
people just the rest of the room shuts down. Where
Yes.
we need to, and it seems like you come in and you're not just looking at it from a design, a brand perspective. You're looking at it from a business challenge.
Yeah.
The corporate priorities and what they're trying
Yeah,
to find.
at the end of the day, no matter what your specialty is, we're all in service to the business
Right.
Sure.
and the strategy of the business. And I think in today's world, in so many spaces, marketing and marketing leaders are set up tremendously to lead. But to our point, it's sometimes getting out of our own way.
Yeah.
We create through language barriers, through concept barriers, we create our own self-imposed executive exile.
Yeah.
Right? We're
Absolutely.
there. And it's understanding that part of our role is to also use the same skills we use that makes us, such a competitive asset in the marketplace, to listen, have empathy, and have understanding to what's happening, what's really being said in there. It also happens outside of the room, in which you're building, the commitments and the camaraderie across the table. Does your CFO understand that you understand and respect the numbers, and how does your work relate to theirs? Does your chief legal counsel? I can't tell you how many times I spend a lot of times with lawyers and they're like, I just wish the marketing team would talk to me before they press send on the campaign. Right? It's just keep me in. I am not a blocker. I want to enable, right? Bring me in. But we do have a sense of having a bit of alchemy, that marketing goes in the corner, we do our magic thing, and we come back in. And that does marketing and our teams and our work a disservice when you're trying to navigate the entire group. There are things that a CEO is going to look for that are slightly different than a CFO, is slightly different than your technology leads. There's always going to be the quiet competition for resources and space, especially if you think there's a scarcity model.
Oh, yeah.
And as marketing, we want to be seen. When you're seen as running the business, it gets you out of the old mindset, the old tapes that people think that marketing is just a call center.
Right.
Right? You talk about shooting yourselves in the foot. If you're using language no one else understands, with concepts that don't seem aligned, and you're seen as just a dollar sign, you're going to have a hard time winning the room, let alone the table and the direction.
So true. One of your stints that I have to ask about, I'm an AIGA fanboy of a design background. So
Yes, as you should be. Yes.
so when you were at AIGA, and I don't know how long were you there to start off with?
I was there for 3 years.
Okay.
And
What were you brought in to do? Because usually when someone's brought in, it's to fix something, to elevate something.
Yes.
What were you doing there?
well, I will tell you, every place I go, we jokingly say this, but it's true. I've got the receipts and the proof points here. No one ever hires me to do the same thing they were doing.
No.
Right? So my background, my experience, and everything else is about, living and delivering a change in space in there. And so with AIGA, we came at a really incredible inflection point for the organization, the association, but more importantly for design and design professionals. Part of what we were doing was how do we elevate the practice of design, which was showing up in all different pockets in space, you know, to a level that was impactful both as a practice, as a discipline, and as an impact for social good. So those three areas are what we were coming in. But in that space, we had to build out the mechanisms and infrastructure, right? And a lot of that was for our time, and that was a lot of rebuilding and reimagining. And then we enter AIGA right at the eve of the pandemic. So that required a radical rethinking, which just accelerated a rethinking that we were leading into. So we were already thinking of doing things differently. This gave us, more than just permission. It gave the accelerant to do that. And so incredible space in there, wonderful community, which I have so many deep connections with. Absolutely love the role there. And I tell people all the time, but you should always check your spam filter. Check your spam filter, because over the summer, about 4 years ago, I thought I was sitting one weekend and thought, I'm not getting that many emails. Not that I need to get a ton of personal emails. It just seemed odd.
Yeah.
There was no emails. I was like, what's going on? So I checked my spam filter, which had been really aggressive. And the first note in there was an email with all caps that said, AMA CEO, call now.
Oh.
And it was from a recruiter, and I would have missed it because it was sitting there. So I wasn't actively so much as so looking or any space in there,
Sure.
enjoying what I was doing. And the AIGA role was really a job of my dreams, right? But then getting the note to say, we want you, that same kid that loved marketing, who became a marketing director, who got a chance to be a CMO and work in associations, to be the CEO of the marketing association. There was something so perfectly wonderful about that.
Right.
Kind of filling those multiple circles in there where you get those moments where you have to have a conversation. I remember sharing with a friend of mine the post, and she didn't say, when are you applying, if you're going to apply or anything else. She simply said, when do you start?
Oh, that's
And
great.
that kind of talked about the experience that I had at AIGA or BBB or starting off in Leo Burnett and Procter & Gamble,
Right.
all culminated together to the things that we needed at this moment for AMA. Similar to AIGA, professional associations with professions at crossroads that are growing, dynamic. When these organizations were started, often 100 years ago, the professions didn't look like they do today.
Right.
Reality is the professions in the last 20 years don't look like they do. And if
No.
we're really honest with ourselves, in the last 7 years, think about how much we've changed.
No.
And the role of professional associations to help accelerate, protect, grow, and educate the profession as it goes in. So that's something that the last 15 years I've had the pleasure of doing, of being in associations, whether it was the Better Business Bureau, thinking about core themes of trust, and both within industry and with consumers and businesses, thinking about, professions that are expanding and growing like design, thinking about business drivers like marketing, which pull it all in together. So that's how that comes together. I mean, it makes perfect sense in retrospect.
But that's not, that wasn't the plan that you drew up on the.
That wasn't the plan that was drawn up, but it naturally leaned into those things that were important. I've always felt community and continual growth is important. I felt that marketing and design are important drivers for business that help drive innovation. I've always looked for creative disruptions and novel solutions. So, all of that adds together to this is why we get to hang out here and talk about the AMA.
Yeah. I mean, the AMA is, as you may know, I'm president of the Chicago chapter, the oldest and largest chapter in AMA.
You see, Chris, how you put that in there? I like it. He's
Nice-
promoting it.
nice
Love
I
it.
can't disagree. He's speaking facts. He is Chris. He is president, and we're so grateful for his service and leadership. And yes, marketing's home is Chicago.
It's an interesting time for marketing too, with all these shifts in technology. AI is certainly a topic of conversation for every event that we have at AMA, not to mention everything that we talk about at MacGuffin, because I mean, there are people that are afraid that AI is going to take their job, and there are going to be jobs that are going to be taken by AI, but there's also going to be opportunities created by AI. What is your kind of vision for the future of marketing as the CEO of AMA?
I think the future of marketing is going to be dynamic. It's going to be creative. It's going to be fast paced. And in that, we're going to have a space of creative destruction, which we see all the time. We've always seen in marketing, right? New things come up and modify the things that have happened before. The pace of change continues to accelerate, whether it's accelerating because of new uses of technology or new visions, or changing, more importantly, of new ways in which we as consumers adapt,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not just a technical change, it's how we value it. Exactly. And what I love about marketing, and not to disparage any other professions, but I always use other examples like the locksmiths or the plumbers, who I love dearly. But I'm just saying, we talk about change and innovation. Marketing, design, and business engagement professions are changing at a lightning fast pace.
Right.
And that's a part of who we are and the organization we serve. So what I love about marketing is simultaneously as the industry, we have people who are working at storied brands
Hmm.
and startups that are only a few months old.
Right.
We have creators that are making their own way
Right.
and strategists who are imagining new ways. We have scholars who are coming from practice and practice professionals who are coming into scholarship, right? Marketing is a space in which there continues to be more space at this table. There continues to be innovative ways to think about how we market. I think with anything, marketing is one of the areas that has had machine and algorithmic learning as a part of our DNA for the last 20 years easily. If you think about it, whether it's online advertising, SEO, or other spaces in there, all of our work had been embedded in that space. It's the last 24 months with generative AI and the chat GPT moment that's kind of elevated the space and
Mm-hmm.
set us on a course that we realize. We've seen in our research that marketers, and what I love to encourage this curiosity, marketers are leading every other field in terms of experimentation with AI, right? It's
Hmm.
really interesting. We're the ones in companies who are often tasked in that executive room. Chris and Chris, you're creative. Go figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? So now I've made that really fun as a statement, but often that's the nod, whether it's
Yeah.
spoken or not. And so we come in to try to make sense of it, which puts us in a really good position to understand how and where and why. It also puts us in a position where I think our challenge is one to step up at the table and to start to establish the guardrails for
Yeah.
what this looks like for our business, our organization, our brands, our teams,
How people,
right?
what are the appropriate ways of use? All of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Those are always going to be structural spaces in there that humans have to decide, which help to create the framework of trust.
Right.
How
Yeah.
do brands grow? Brands grow at that accelerated speed of trust. If you don't have that, then your words, your images, your marketing campaigns mean nothing.
One of the sections here in Marketing Outtakes we like to call the cutting room floor. And
Yes.
I know your whole career was planned out from middle school to today.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
But
Yeah.
yeah, which is nice. Not everyone has that. So the cutting room floor is somewhere where you may have done something that was unexpected. Something took a turn, something that you usually don't brag about that we
Yeah.
can share here. What do you got?
Well, it came up recently because I have this conversation, and it's a story that I love because it's so awesomely bad,
Ooh.
right? And it's in a wonderful way. So I had the chance years ago. I worked on building one of the first online communities for project managers.
Oh.
It's now a part of PMI, but this is the time we were a startup and we were this new idea, and we built really quickly this incredible community. I was the first marketing director that this group had. I came in with the founders under it. And so really proud of the fact that we had built this community from zero to several hundred thousand project managers.
Hmm.
And pretty much IT project managers to be oddly specific. And we built this dynamic space, and it was built on the insights that project managers needed support. They needed a community. These are lessons that I take with me even to the work we do today. And this is 20 some odd years ago,
Yeah.
right? So we're going through, we built this dynamic community. We had companies who were signing up, who were then starting to sign up their entire teams of project managers. It's just great. We're moving the needle. It's not just individual, it's teams.
Yeah.
And we were really excited and feeling ourselves to how do we fill out this community? What are the things that we need? We have learning, we have resources, we have all of these top project managers in this isolated community, and they're learning from each other, and it's great. And we're sitting in a room and we're like, you know what we need to have here? We need a job board. That sounded good. And everybody nodded like you're nodding because on paper and on surface, that sounds kind of interesting. And we got excited and we went about building out this job board. That, by the way, no one asked us for. But we were like, well,
It
we've got all
felt-
these other things.
it felt
We should
right.
have a job board. It felt right. So we had naming and branding and we built it all out. But we had missed one critical factor. We had built a community as a safe, dynamic space. We had built a community that was a space in which companies were paying and footing the bill for their lead, highly trained, highly sought after project managers to live into this space. They were underwriting all of this. So the thing that I did, Chris, was to walk up to them and say, yes, thank you for underlining and getting all the information in. Thank you for doing all of that. This is wonderful. But yeah, we're now going to take the people that you've given to us
And help them find.
and have them yes, we're going to get them poached by other people.
And you're
you
going to
talk
charge
about
those
it-
companies to post those jobs.
You talk about an unintended trust break, right? Because on surface, it's exciting. I can still see the presentations now. Like, this is going to happen. It's going to go into. And then you've got insert large company that's like, wait a minute. So I just, encouraged all of my top highly trained, highly sought after PMs to be on your platform. And now they're getting pitched from my competitors to go take other jobs.
Ouch.
Yes.
That's
yes.
a good one. That's a really
It sounds
good one.
bad when you say it, but it's one of those spaces where our intention and our blinded hubris of we can do this and create this can get in the way of actually delivering on our principal promise. So coming back to that and pulling back and going, oh, that's not the case. Are they looking to augment their skills? Yes. Is it a space in which the focus is on the profession? Yes. Could there be need for a job board? Yes, someplace else, but that wasn't the purpose of our brand that we had built.
Right.
Really
space.
good one.
But yeah, you started to see it and it had material impact. Like, well, I'm not going to renew. I'm going to block my staff from going. Like, oh, just kidding.
Oops.
Oops. All right, that's a good one. That's a really good one, Benny.
So what are your goals for this year for AMA? Like, do you have like some things? Maybe it's something that you came in, you were asked when you were brought in to do something to guide the organization, or what are kind of things that are on the?
Our goal is really simple and really focused in this space. And sometimes the best goals are exactly that. Our goal is to continue to do the work, the investment, the learning, the build that will continue to make the AMA the essential community for marketing. It's an important part. That's been our mission and vision. And when you think about it, essential includes everything, right? It's all those spaces. It's the spaces big and small in which marketers need to go forward. It's the idea that you may be working in-house today, but you're going to start your business tomorrow. Where do you go first for your first clients?
Yeah.
For the template for your first contract? You want to come to your professional association. That's where the AMA is. You're in school deciding whether to go to grad school to study marketing. Where do you want to go? You're a professor and you're looking for research subjects and topics. The AMA is the space. And in that, building a community in which we can all prosper together, in which we grow, and there's mentorship that happens both in the future as aspiration, but also digging back. We do a lot of reverse and multi-dimensional mentorship. We've got creators working with seasoned vets,
Right.
and seasoned pros and scholars working with new interest to marketing. Those are all the things that create a dynamic marketing community. And really, it's communities plural
Yeah.
and writ large, right? And we talk about this all the time. Many times as a marketer and in our worlds, you live in multiple identities at the same time.
Right.
We have people who are in our community who are experts on branding, but novices in AI.
Right.
They're experts on strategy, right? But new to the world of academia. How can we build a space that we can simultaneously be the expert and the student, the learner and the teacher
Yep.
in a space that fosters this connection in ways. And that's ultimately what all the things we do, the programs, the tactics, the deliverables, they all ladder up into, is it creating this dynamic community that's essential to marketing's future and success?
Well, that's community, I think, is the thing that I think AMA does best at.
Mm-hmm.
I know at AMA Chicago, but even just like whenever I hear from another chapter, I always want to respond. And there's just definitely that feeling of being connected to that community. But it's hard to make everyone happy all at the same time, Benny. Big chapters versus small chapters, they have different needs.
Right.
Academic collegiate chapters have different needs. And like, how do you balance all of that? Is there like a guiding light that's like, this is what helps me make decisions about how to move forward?
Yeah, I will tell you this. Happiness is not a metric.
Okay.
I say this all the time. Happiness is not a metric, right? And so what we're doing is we're driven by what I just said to build this dynamic community. And that means that sometimes when we're building it, some people understand, some people might not. We're building things that may be dynamic that you don't need, but someone else is exactly the lifeline.
Right.
And having that broader, more nuanced view is one of the spaces. When you have a really robust stakeholder community, you can end up in those moments where I can talk about something that the research, the insight, and the community need in Florida is spot on, but you may not need that in Chicago.
Right.
So my goal is not for what we create that's meeting a need in Florida to make you feel happy in Chicago, right?
Right.
There are going to be things that we do that are Chicago needs that are different than Maine, that are different than Puerto Rico,
Right.
right? But my goal is to what drives the principle is going back to that, how do you build this essential community? And part of that is understanding where your parts and pieces are and filling in the gaps in between. Yes.
Benny, we end with 8 rapid fire questions.
All right.
Try and answer them in as few words as possible.
Okay.
You ready?
Is this a yes, no?
No.
One word answers, but
One word answers. Should be easy.
Don't be afraid.
All right.
Okay, all right.
Ready?
All right. Yeah.
Get rid of one forever. Meetings or email?
Email.
Your favorite corporate slang?
Favorite corporate slang? Bugbo. Blow up and get bought out. That's my buddies always talk about that.
That's good.
Good. Describe yourself under pressure in one word.
Calm.
Oh.
When focused on working, background noise or complete silence?
I grew up in the city, my friends. It's always noisy. What's this silence you speak of?
What's that? Freak me out. What's your go-to inspiration source when you're stuck?
Oh my goodness. Life.
Okay.
I kind of take a deep breath and take it all in wherever I am. That's where I find inspiration.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question. Morning person or night owl?
Do they really end? It's either Saturday night or Sunday morning somewhere, right? No, morning, always.
Yeah. Standing desk. Underrated or overrated?
What is this desk you speak of?
All right, sitting down. And your dream non-marketing job?
Oh my goodness. For me, every job is a marketing job, my friend.
Oh.
Everything, if you're doing it well, you're marketing, man. I come by that honest. That is who I am. That is what I would say. You name a profession, I will tell you it's still marketing.
All right.
That's really cool.
Well, thank you so much, Benny.
Yeah, thanks,
Just
Benny.
for our listeners, Benny has his own Webby-nominated podcast called AMA's Marketing And, so you should check that out wherever you listen to your podcasts. Is there anything else you want to plug while we're wrapping up here?
Well, thank you all for listening, and thank you for letting me be the inaugural guinea pig on this wonderful podcast. Yes, you can listen to my podcast too, but I encourage you to do this. I encourage everyone to follow and engage with the AMA. The AMA has marketing resources, experiences, and wonderful cast of characters like the double Chris's here to help you along the marketing journey. So we are there whether you locally live near a chapter, you're at a university, or just marketing in space. We've got time for you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you, Benny. Appreciate you.
Thank you all.
I feel like every time I talk to Benny, it's like unpeeling an onion. Like there's so many different layers to him, and whether it's him being a father, him being an academic, him being AMA CEO, just as a person, he's just a really dynamic person.
I wish we had more time. When he's back in Chicago, we're definitely going to sit down and have dinner, because we could have picked one part of his career and just done a podcast on that.
For sure.
So interesting. And for someone he's been in a lot of places, he's really focused. Mm-hmm. He's just really focused at what he does. I bet he just brings his natural self every time he comes.
Yeah. Any key things that you picked up from him along the conversation?
He's well read. He knows the industry so well. Mm-hmm. I think he could be put in any organization and make it better. He's just one of those people. I
liked what he said about happiness is not a metric.
It's so true.
I think it's true. I mean, but it's hard to ignore it. So I need to kind of think about that a little bit more.
We need to add one to our rapid fire question. Is it about the art? I'm not sure how to say this. Is it about the art or is it about the numbers? I'm not sure.
Yeah, like creativity or data.
Yeah, data, creative. But they separate.
I would have liked to hear his answer on that.
I would. Now looking back, just the places he's been, I think he could do both. I think he rides that rail right between the two.
Yeah. Well, that was fun. We have lots of exciting guests joining us in the future. We've got Jennifer Bell, CMO of Let Us Entertain You, and Christine Buck, CMO of Minitab. So just some really wonderful people that I'm sure will give us some great perspectives. For you listeners out there, please subscribe to our podcast, and thanks for listening.